rev up your engines. Today I'm going to talk about why not to add nitrous oxide boost systems to your car. Now, some racing guys, to cheat, especially on street races, will add nitrous oxide to their car. Canister of gas, it injects the stuff into the engine to give it insane boost. Now, nitrous oxide does work. There's no arguing that. It improves performance not just by the gas that comes in and makes things burn faster, but it also makes a lot of cooling inside the intake. And when it's cooler and more dense, you're going to get more power. So it really does work quite well. But the main problem is the system itself is going to be pretty bulky because your engine uses a lot of air. And the containers that hold the nitrous oxide have to be heavy because it's compressed gas. They take up a reasonable amount of space, and there's only so much nitrous oxide you can pack into one of those tanks. To give you an idea, a 5-liter engine going at 4,000 RPMs uses 10,000 liters of air every minute. So with nitrous oxide, you're going to need a gigantic tank, or even if you got one that's like a scuba tank size, you're only going to get a few minutes of nitrous oxide before the tank runs out. Now, there's two types of nitrous oxide systems. There's dry and there's wet. Now, if you use this dry system in fuel-injected cars, everything has to be programmed correctly. It's not something that you just bolt on and drive away. So it's a real deal setting it up right in the first place. Now, in the wet nitrous system, it uses both the nitrous oxide and the gasoline. It mixes them both when it goes into the engine. Now, the wet system is what they originally used when I was young, because most things were carbureted, and it's set up better for a carbureted system because the carburetor is on the top of the intake and it sends the fuel evenly to all the cylinders. So if you're adding nitrous there, it's going to be pretty much evenly distributed. Because if the fuel and the air isn't evenly distributed, you're going to get backfires and poor running. Using something that creates that much compression, it can destroy an engine. I've seen them put holes in pistons. And regardless of whether you're using wet or dry nitrous, you realize that there are 4 different systems for delivering it on different types of cars. When I was young and guys were doing my carbureted vehicles, they used a single nozzle system. Just had a single nozzle and it would just inject it right into the intake. We had a lot of boost that way. In more modern cars, you can use a direct port system. Say you've got one fuel injector on each port. You use the same type of nozzle as in the other system, but you have one for each cylinder. And this system is used mainly in racing applications. They will actually put numerous different nozzles in different places and have it all computer controlled so that you can have boost at a certain point closer to the engine, boost a little bit further away, all depending on what RPMs they're running the engine at. Now, the third type of system is called the plate system. They have a plate, it's like a spacer plate, and it's put on the intake in various different positions. And the last type of system is called the bar system, and that's just a hollow tube that has holes drilled on it, and that's hidden inside the intake plenum to shoot nitrous in. But regardless of the different types of nitrous oxide systems that are out there, it's not a good idea to put it on your car that you're driving on the street. Now, in many states it's illegal. I remember once I was riding with a kid who had one on his Mustang, and a cop pulled him over. He saw that he had a nitrous system on. Kid knew the law, and the law was if the tank wasn't connected to the system, you can drive it on the street that way and say, hey, I only use this when I'm racing at the racetrack. So he didn't get a ticket for the nitrous oxide, but he did get a ticket for speeding. He couldn't talk his way out of that. But technically, at least here in the United States, nitrous oxide is illegal completely because it makes the cars pollute more. When you're using these nitrous systems, one of the things that catalytic converter does is get rid of oxides of nitrogen. When you're shooting nitrous oxide into a car, they pollute a lot more than the legal limit. Of course, nobody's dumb enough to be turning their nitrous oxide on while they're doing an emissions test to get the car inspected, but technically, they're totally illegal because they pollute more. Now, you're not going to be using them all the time, so the pollution aspect isn't that much, because even the big tanks only last for a few minutes. But using nitrous oxide has a big downside, and that is you're getting so much higher compression and more power out of the engine. I've seen numerous engines blown when the people turn on the nitrous oxide. They'll knock a hole in the piston, they'll blow the head gasket. All kinds of damage can be done. Everyone's seen some of those videos at the drag strip or so when a guy takes off and then the head of the engine just blows right off and flames go shooting up in the air. Well, it's not a good idea for your car to take that kind of abuse, especially with modern fuel injected engines. Since everything's run by computer, if you actually do set up a nitrous oxide oxide system in a modern fuel-injected car, it's going to cost you a lot of money and take a lot of time to have a professional mechanic set it up to run correctly. Take when I was a young mechanic with a carburetor, they'd just put a spacer plate under the carburetor and then it would just spray it down in there and they'd add it on, turn it off, and it would take off like mad. It isn't as complex as a fuel-injected cars, where everything is directly metered by a computer. And back in those days, especially in the 60s, you take all those big V8 engines, they're cast iron engines. Cast iron can take a lot more pressure than cast aluminum. The aluminum can bend a lot easier than cast iron will. You start adding nitrous gas inside one of these systems, you can blow an aluminum head, aluminum block engine quite easily if you put a little bit too much boost in it. If you've ever driven a turbocharged car, you know, you got gauges for the boost, and they have what's called a wastegate. If the pressure gets too high, then the wastegate opens, so it can't boost it too much. With these nitrous oxide systems, you open that thing up and it starts boosting. If it's not metered correctly, it can easily boost too much and blam goes the engine. Now, I've known a lot of guys that put nitrous oxide systems on motorcycles. It's kind of a toy thing for them. Motorcycles are super fast anyway, and if one guy's racing another guy, maybe there's some money involved, and he's got some nitrous oxide hidden under the seat somewhere, hey, he might win that race and pocket some money. But for cars that you're driving around or you want to go a little bit faster, you're taking a pretty big chance putting nitrous oxide on any modern car that you're driving on the street. There's always going to be guys out there putting nitrous oxide systems on to show how fast they can go. But for the average person who wants their vehicle to last as long as it can, stay away from nitrous oxide. And definitely don't use it like some of those party boys do. So if you never want to miss another one of my new car repair videos, remember to ring that bell.